3:30 in the morning, not a soul in sight.
Welcome,
City's looking like a ghost
everyone.
town on a lonely
We are
summer
so
night.
excited to have you guys here with us
Raindrops on the
today, and we're
windshield,
going to
the
get started in
storm
just a
moving.
moment. We have a couple more people
He's headed
joining,
back
so
from
we will get started
somewhere
in just
that
a
he
minute, but
never
enjoy
should
some
have been.
tunes
And the
while we
thunder
wait.
rolls, and the thunder rolls. Every light is burning.
I hope you guys are feeling jazzed to be here.
Why not? It's a Thursday morning, you know?
Oh, I'm seeing so many friends pop in. Hey, Taylor. Hey, Renee.
Hey, Rudy. Hey, Jamie. So excited to see you guys here. Hi, Billy. Hey, Trent. Nancy.
Megan, our employee, our third, is here. All right. Well, I am super excited, Kristen, for us to start talking about the growth depression, the era of stagnation. Before we jump into it, because we have a lot to talk about here, housekeeping. What do we want to say before we start talking?
I think the most important thing for us to say is thank you guys all for being here with us today. We are excited to have you guys. And this is part one of a 3-part webinar series titled Growth Happens. All right. And this is not just growth, this is capital G growth. Okay. And in this first installment here, we are going to be talking about the growth depression in our era of stagnation. We're going to get into what that means, but the chat is open. Please feel free to use the chat, drop in hellos, drop in your questions. What's really cool is if you see a question that someone else has, you can go ahead and you can upvote that question. And then we can answer those questions live as we are going through. So as we are getting started here, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and let's get going. Candace, anything else you want to add housekeeping wise?
I think that's it. One of the reasons Kristen and I were inspired to have this conversation about the growth depression and the era of stagnation is because we've seen a lot of companies that end up in this middle zone where they are growing, but they're not growing. And we wanted to address this from 3 parts. Part 1 is going to be our conversation today, numbers. Then we're going to talk about people. Then we're going to talk about plan, just so you guys know what to look forward to.
Perfect. So I think that leads us into a really great question, Candace. What does the growth depression actually mean? And I think that it's fair that we start here because we made this up. So can we share with everyone exactly what the growth depression means? What is that era of stagnation? What do we really mean whenever we're talking about this?
Absolutely. So this is an area we see a lot of people hit, and it is you have grown, you have done the work, you've started adding on the doors, but somehow you still feel at 150 doors or 300 doors like you did at 50. Like, when is it going to get better? How many more doors do I need to feel like I'm actually making progress within my business? And so that's the conversation we want to have is we are growing. We're seeing this change. Things are happening, but we still feel stuck, even though this is the point where we thought we wouldn't be stuck anymore. And there are some really clear symptoms to a growth depression. Kristen, can you walk us through those symptoms?
Absolutely. I think the first one right off the bat, and this is one that we notice within ourselves or we notice with our employees, we're all stuck in survival mode. And so how this presents itself is we come into work and we're like, oh my gosh, I just need to get to 5 o'clock today. I just need to get through this month. I just need to get through this busy season. But we're showing up not necessarily looking future facing, but we're stuck in today. How can we get through today? How can we make this day done, right? And that is really the only thing that we're focused on is just getting through the day. What's next there, Candace?
We also have a disproportionate income growth. So of course, whenever we add more doors, we are going to have more costs to doing business. That's just par for the course, right? But when we're looking at the income that we're getting per door, it should still taper upwards. But we do see a lot of companies that get stuck where we are starting to almost lose income per door compared to when we were smaller. That is not easily accounted for just by the cost of doing business.
Absolutely. And I think the next one there is the most obvious symptom here, where we're churning our qualified doors. Now, these are not necessarily owners that suck or doors that we don't want to manage. These are owners that we want to retain under management, but they are churning out for us and we don't quite know why. We're adding doors and we're losing them just as fast as we're bringing them in. And Candace, talk to us about the team. How does that play into this?
Yes. So this is one that I think a lot of companies get stuck in, and this is the team inefficiency. This can be a team member that we've had since really early on in our business, but they are sort of poisoning the well for new employees that are coming on. They're used to how we did things when we had 25 doors, and now that we have 1,000, they are still stuck in that same mentality. So potentially this is someone who's really struggling to adopt some of the technology that we are starting to implement. We spent tens of thousands of dollars building out Elite Simpler Apply, and they're not wanting to use it because they know their job well enough. They don't need these things. And so this is an area that I think is often overlooked, but it's one of the areas that can hurt from the from the internal. It ends up poisoning everyone else who's working in our team.
Absolutely. So to sum this all up for y'all, the growth depression really in a nutshell is you're adding doors, you're hitting targets. So on paper, everything is looking like it should be good. Everything should be great, but momentum is missing. And this is where you're really entering into this era of stagnation where we just quite can't get all of the gears turning at once to move forward and really hit our momentum. And so Candace, to really round this webinar, we're focusing around one central theme here. And Candace, I think you want to share about our friend.
Oh, yes, our dear, dear friend, Charles Goodhart. Please show us Charles,
Oh, I would
Kristen.
love to.
This is our friend Charles. So Charles Goodhart is an economist who is really focused on in a lot of industries but we're not really talking about him in the property management industry. But one of my favorite takes of his is when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. Meaning, if we are measuring something within our business to track if the business is succeeding, if things are working, but we are using that same measure as a target, so that's also a goal, it is no longer a good measure because we are going to change our business to hit that target,
And
right?
change our behavior.
Oh, yep. And it's going to break our process. So we want to tell you guys some stories about how this has been used because we can tell you hypothetically this is something you need to change, but we want to show you in practice how this can cause breaks within your business.
So to zoom out of the property management industry just a little bit, I know I can't see all of you guys, but I just know that you're nodding along with me there at home, staring at your computer. Now, how many of us have been through to a drive-through? Candace, have you ever picked up fast food?
Well, I am actually incredibly healthy,
Yeah,
so like
I know.
maybe once or twice this week.
So whenever we go to our drive-through, we order our food, we go up to the window to pay, we get to the window where we are supposed to get our food, and we're told, "Can you pull up? Pull up and we'll bring your food out," right? Do you know why that is, Candace?
No, but I would love for you to tell me.
Oh, that's good because I have the answer. The reason that that is because most fast food restaurant, these big chains are judged, their store is judged on success. Their manager is judged on success with how quickly they can get people through the drive-through. Now that is whenever they get to the window that they're supposed to pick up the food and move forward. There is not a measurement that is tracked once they move past that window for the person to receive their food. So on paper, this restaurant looks like it's succeeding, but are they really? Were you going to ask me something, Candace?
Yeah, so it's not when the food is delivered to the
No.
patron who ordered food?
It is not. It is actually the time of getting somebody through the drive-through and it's leaving that second window. Now, what is happening here is the managers have learned to gamify this system to be able to, on paper, have their metrics be tracked and look really well. But their customer experience, quite honestly, really sucks. I mean, I live in Texas. Whataburger is my favorite. I go to Whataburger and it takes them 20 minutes to bring out my burger. All my other Texas folks, I know you're going, yes, because they have gamified this system to where on paper, their store looks like they're succeeding, but they are not. And that is because their target and their measures are not consistent, and the employees and the managers' behaviors have changed in order to be able to reach the target that they are being judged at. Now, this is fast food, Candace. Do you have another relevant example for us?
I do, but before I jump into that, I think it's very interesting that this does lead into sacrificing customer experience in order to hit metrics, right?
Because
And
corporate wants us here. And so we're going to do whatever we have to do to get there, but not care about what our customers are thinking or feeling.
which I'm sure every single one of us has been at a window and we're waiting for a coffee and they ask us to pull forward and we just want to bang our head on the steering wheel because we know it's going to be 20 minutes now, or it would have been 5 if we waited at the window, right?
We just wanted
So
it quickly.
we just wanted it quickly. So I do have another example, Kristen. So before I get into this, don't mind the picture yet, everyone. One of my favorite questions to ask people, what did they do before property management? Because it is interesting to see the paths people took to get into this industry, right? So I would love if you guys want to throw in the chat, what was your life before property management? And I will probably have a million questions for you because I find it so interesting how you ended up here. But my life before property management is I was a Victoria's Secret model. No, I wasn't. I was a top rated sales associate though. So I worked at Victoria's Secret and I was getting bras in bags, people, right? So I was folding it up in paper, getting people out the door. Oh, let's see. Who do we have? Okay. Renee, retail store at the mall. Yes. Right. Okay, Renee, where did you work? What retail did you do? Tilly's. Oh,
Love
that's clothing retail. I think everyone should have to work in clothing retail at least at one point in their life because you see another end of humanity there. Hospitality, Megan, wonderful. Anyone else? What did you do before property management? Gangster. Well, we knew that, Kristen. Fix and flip real estate. That feels like a direct line though, Trent, right? So you're fixing and flipping, ending up in property management, talent acquisition. I guess the talent you are now acquiring is real estate, right? So it's like one for one. Oh, that's awesome. So I worked at Victoria's Secret and in retail, and Renee, you will probably relate to this. The metrics you are judged on is the amount of merchandise you are scanning and getting in bags and getting people to walk out the door with, right? So of course we would do our bra measurements and then we would say, oh, here's your little card with the number that is the size you need to get. And then we would be throwing bras of that size at people. And one thing to know about bra sizes, for those of you who are not well adverse with bra sizing, it's not consistent, right? So we would give them this number, but we would not have them try on multiple things. We would say, this is the number and this is what you need to buy because we wanted to get that money. We needed to get to the next customer so we could get more sales. Well, the result of this really like pushing products onto people is merchandise returns represented a significant financial drain for Victoria's Secret with in the retail industry as a whole, 743 billion was reached in returns for retail. Not a great metric. So, Kristen, if you want to hit the next one. What we ended up seeing is when you prioritize the volume of sales versus quality of sales, you get a lot more items returned, right? And so you end up in this situation where you are pushing sales, you're trying to get people out the door and to purchase these items, but then a lot of these items are coming back in because they don't fit and we didn't spend the time to make sure that people actually wanted the items that they're buying. It was we were counteracting the goal we were trying to reach, which is more profit but for the company, because we were trying to push product that wasn't right for the consumer.
Oh, so good, Candace. And you as the sales rep, you were incentivized to sell more and more and more and more and more. Is that correct?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You're the picture on the wall got bigger and bigger the more sales you got. So like people would walk in and have to stare at your face. It was incredible.
So Candace, would you say that those are good representations here of when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure?
Exactly. So we end up in the situation where we are pushing some sort of metric and we are trying really hard to reach it, but it's not necessarily going to drive our business forward. As I'm sure a lot of you have seen when you've walked through your local malls, Victoria's Secrets are closing all over the place. That they're not the only place. We're seeing this across the board that a lot of these retail shops are closing. And that's because also we are in an economy where it is a lot easier to process returns. People have a mentality of buy and return instead of try things on and hold. So we see this driving this force forward and it's creating breaks within the business. What does this mean for property management, Kristen?
Oh, I think it means a lot of things, Candace. I think that it's a good way for us to take a step back and to look at the way that we are doing things. And so I think we have a question that we need to ask everyone. So I want everyone to just take a moment, take a deep breath, and really take in this next question. Are your KPIs the thing that is actually killing your growth?
Dun, dun, dun.
This, I think, is a very fair and valid question for the reason of what are we measuring? And whatever we are measuring, how are our employees interpreting these numbers? And how are they possibly even changing their behavior to be able to hit that because they have to, right? Because that's where they're driving towards. And so, not to call anyone out, Candace, but I think it'd be good if we took a look at what we can imagine an average scorecard looks like, or some average metrics that we're tracking within a property management business.
Absolutely. So we have a kind of a high level look of some metrics that we see working with the clients that we work with. So this is the big picture of your average scorecard. The top two are sales. So Kristen, I want you to walk through those two for us.
So obviously, right off the top, we need to know how much we're growing, right? So we need to know how many doors and owners we are signing every single month. And the second one there, if we are doing some form of outbound calls or we're tracking the amount of activity that we're having our sales reps do, we want to know how many outbound calls are they making every day, every week, every month. That is what a lot of times we're tracking in sales to judge success of our growth. But as we know, growth is not just sales, growth is sales and ops. So how does that then translate over into our operations side, Candace?
Absolutely. And I must say the especially number one, their newly signed doors, if there is a single management company that is here with us that does not have this as a metric they're tracking, let me know because like jaw dropping.
Questions.
So many questions, so many questions. Next, we have churn rate. So that's, of course, going to be the attrition, doors we are losing after they've been signed on, really normal number to track. Balance owed monthly. So this will be our delinquency. Time to turn a property. So from when a resident moves out to the property being ready for a new resident, and renewal rate.
Now, Candace, a lot of these, they are, I would say, good indicators of if our company is growing. I don't think that there's anything wrong with these metrics necessarily, but I think that there's probably two questions that we need to ask with each of these here. And we're going to isolate just three of them here. And the two important questions we need to ask are, what does this measure tell your team and why this target breaks your process? Candace, what does churn rate tell your team and how does that break your process? That seems a little bit counterintuitive. I'm not going to lie to you. Just explain this to me, please, and to all of our friends here.
I would love to, but I am going to go back. I'm going to repeat Charles. When a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. As this relates to churn rate, when we're looking at churn rate, what this is going to tell our team is how many owners are we losing, right? How many owners are leaving? This can be a good indicator of the market. It can tell us, oh, are interest rates changing and prices increasing and now owners are incentivized to sell? Perhaps it's going to tell our team what our service quality looks like, depending on why the churn is happening. But the reason that this breaks our process is it's really hard to target things we can't control. And this is something that we see break processes a bit whenever we're looking at the way that we're structuring it and tracking numbers. I think we have to monitor churn rate. We should know why owners are leaving. We should know if 10% of our owners are selling in a single year. But when we're focusing on making this a target, so let's say our target is a less than 2% churn rate on our portfolio, then we are now going to be incentivized to have different conversations with our owners. Let's say we do real estate sales within our business, but we're targeting a lower churn rate. We're potentially losing a lot of income in real estate sales because we are focusing on saving owners rather than capitalizing on additional income. We also potentially are incentivizing bad owners to stay because we want that churn rate to go down. We've seen this, Kristen, right? I'm sure you've
So
seen
many
BDMs.
times.
And so we end up in this situation where we are potentially offering owners 2 months free of management because we do not want to lose that churn rate. And so this is how this target can break our team. Kristen, next one is a little bit controversial. And so I'm excited to hear
I
yours.
know. I see some of the teams that I am working with here inside of training your sales team. So don't roll your eyes too hard at me. Okay. There is a reason here. There's a method to the madness. Okay. Whenever we are looking at just and isolating this number of our newly signed doors and owners, a lot of times what I hear from the owners of companies or the managers of these sales teams is they just keep bringing on bad owners. They keep bringing on bad doors. Why is that? Well, because the metric in which we are judging their success is bring on owners, bring on owners, bring on doors. We need to grow. We need to hit this number. We need to stay ahead of our churn rate. We need to make sure that we're doing these things. So where in there are we telling them to prioritize anything different than getting signed deals? Okay. So that is what we are telling our team. That's the message that we are sending here. And then what we're doing and how that breaks our process is we end up exactly what I said there, where we're bringing on wrong fit owners, right? We are bringing on owners that are not necessarily the right fit for us and doors that quite honestly, my deem is a little bit crappy. They may be C plus properties whenever we're trying to manage A and B class properties. So it's breaking our process and what we are letting our team know is sign doors at any measure possible. Do it, please. now. Sign the door, sign the door, sign the door. We're behind by goal. We need to do this. So that is where that breaks our process, because we are not incentivizing our team to bring on right fit owners. We are incentivizing them to just bring on owners and doors. Now, this last one here, Candace, I am curious, renewal rate. How does, I don't know. Isn't it just better to renew our tenants? I mean, to keep them in our residents, to keep them in our properties?
So first, let's talk about what it tells our team. Tells our team our renewal percentage. There's a lot of renewal metrics we often see. So one can be, what is our renewal percentage? Another one can be, what is the rental increase that we're having across the board? But this is another one that when we're targeting renewal rate, this isn't something that necessarily is a fair target, especially when we're looking at correcting behavior within our team. So renewal rate is very subjective. It's again very market specific. And when we're looking at renewal, I think that there's a lot of other targets that are going to be a much better indicator if our team is successfully managing these renewals, rather than we're just saying, oh, this percentage of people renewed, so our team succeeded this month.
Absolutely. So, Candace, I think that it would be not fair of us to just go ahead and tell everyone that their KPIs are killing their business and not offer them alternative ways to look at these. So, fear not, my friends. We are going to look at our measures here and talk about the alternatives that we can present to our team here to help to incentivize the activities, our values, and the growth that we want to see. So, the first one, the newly signed doors, the target here, Candace, what is that target?
So instead of looking newly signed doors, we can look at closed doors that remained under management for over 6 months. This helps us now target and measure, Kristen.
Oh, it helps us target and measure our retention and not simply just the new doors that are being signed. So I've seen this done in a couple of different ways. And that is, we have one commission amount that is paid out at the very beginning, right? Once the door is signed, yay, we want to incentivize the activities that we want to see. That is one of my number one mantras here. And so, yes, we want new owners. Fantastic. However, at a 6-month mark, a 9-month mark, a 12-month mark, an 18-month mark, whatever mark that looks like, where we can say, okay, we're going to retain this owner, there should be an accelerator or another additional incentive for our sales team here that are bringing on right fit owners. So now we are not simply judging their success and the success of our sales on how many new owners and how many new doors can you sign in 1 year. And instead, we're looking at how many good quality owners and doors can we sign in 1 year, and how many can we retain in 2 years, 3 years. Again, whatever that metric looks like for you, but it's about the quality, not the quantity. And that is what we want. And time again, I see salespeople fall into this trap, because I know I did. Candace, I'm going to be honest here. Okay. When I was a BDM, I quite honestly did not care. Like, I knew the standards that we needed. But I wanted my commission. Quite honestly, I wanted to make my money. I wanted to get these owners signed. I love the rush of the deal. I love to see it happen. And that's what I was working towards, is I wanted to have those deals done. And so didn't matter to me if they churned after 3 months. It only mattered to me that I got the deal done. What about you, Candace? Anything brought up there on that one?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I think that when we're looking at the sign doors, it's also very frustrating sometimes for business development managers when a door is signed and we are now in a position where it's closed, and then we again have the attrition. But having a form of incentive also at that 6-month point, where potentially you have a partial commission paid thereafter once that door is signed and they've stayed on for the 6 months, that can allow for a lot of opportunity for one, BDMs to be really happy and also be really excited about bringing on doors the teams are excited to have.
Absolutely. So then that brings me into the next one here of our outbound calls made. Now, if we are looking at, we want activity, we want conversations, we want people going out there. I don't care, Candace, if you're a salesperson I'm training, that you made 3,000 calls. I don't care. I could care less how many calls you made. I care about how much contact you had. How many conversations are you having with someone on a daily basis? This metric is so much more meaningful than the number of calls. It really drives me crazy when people say, oh, it's just a numbers game. So if I call 300 people, 30 will answer. I'll talk to 3 of them, 1 of them will sign. That's not real, right? You may call 300 people, but if none of them answers, I would say you need to have 300 conversations, and your conversion rates there are going to continue to increase, because it's about the quality here of the conversations we're having, not just the amount of people that we're talking to. Because I could open a phone book. Wow, I'm old. I could open up Google and find 50 businesses to call there. And if none of them answer, does it matter? No, it doesn't, right? So it's those conversations that we want to have.
And there were times whenever I was doing sales, I would literally rush off quality conversations because I had a metric of a number of calls to hit. Which, think about how counterintuitive that is as a sales agent. You're trying to hang up on a person who may be qualified because you need to hit a solid metric for how many people you've dialed.
You know, Candace, that as your former coach, that's okay. I will forgive you. No, I'm just kidding. So, Candace, whenever you look at churn rate, what is the target that we should measure instead?
Yes. So things we should look at is number of qualified owners retained or the percent of churn due to dissatisfaction. These could be also two separate measures, right? We should be tracking if owners are leaving because they're selling the property. Very good to measure. That's not going to be a good indication of how we are doing business. If you're selling those properties for owners, that's a really good metric of how many of them we closed for sales. But we should be looking at the number of qualified owners we were able to save, right? So who gave us notice or said, hey, I plan on canceling, and you were able to keep them on without a financial incentive. I cannot emphasize if we make a really big mistake, of course, we need to pay for mistakes that we make, but we should not be paying people to stay with us. That is
No.
not a healthy relationship to have
No.
with an owner. The next one is going to be the percent of churn due to dissatisfaction. So being very clear about why is this happening and how many people are getting upset. This then kind of ties to the renewals complete and the rent increase percentage, where we should be looking again at relationships. Average time from renewal offer to lease signed. That's a really good metric that we can monitor very closely, and we can see how many times are we reaching out to people. What are we doing to get this lease signed rather than what percentage of people are signing the lease, because again, we don't always have control over that.
Oh, that's good, Candace. So, what it sounds like what we're doing there is empowering the team to be able to be in direct control of some of these metrics here and measuring not just how many we pushed through, but the time that it's taking, because that's the controllable. Is that the piece there that we're looking at with, I mean, the churn rate and with the renewals there, that we're putting the control back into what our employees can actually do?
Oh, absolutely. And Kristen, you know this. I will let everyone else know. I have a very strong opinion about the way this industry handles renewals. And I think that there are some companies, they're phenomenal. They do a really great job, but across the board, it has become such an automated process that the humans have left it. And
Mm.
I think that as a whole, being human, presenting yourself, being available to people, and being able to answer questions and be a support person, that is going to change the way that you have these processes. And that should be what our targets are based on.
Ooh, I love that. So carrying that here into our balanced owed monthly, which is our delinquency process, clearly we should just be measuring how many people are not paying on time, or what is different. What can we do differently?
Absolutely. Measure, yes. But when we look at what we're targeting, number of payment plans established, number of owners notified before they reached out to us to ask why their rent payment wasn't received, we should be looking again at the human touches in the way that we want to present ourselves within our business. Now, I am not telling you to not brag about these numbers. If you have a 90% payment rate across the board in your portfolio, brag about that. That's a really good indication we have a good screening process. So just because something is a measure doesn't mean it can't be used to brag and to show success within the business. But again, as Charles said, when a measure becomes a target, it now fails to be a good measure because we're changing what we're doing to hit the target.
Mm, so good. And this last one here, time to turn a property. What should we be targeting there?
There are so many things we can target when it comes to a turn while still measuring the time. So we can look at the average time from move out to make ready complete. We can look at the average vendor response and owner approval time. We can look at quality of work. How many times do we have to send vendors back out to the property to complete work again? All of those are really good targets to determine how well our team is doing.
Absolutely. So, what I'm hearing here, and that I hope is clear to everyone else, is that we want to remove the ability to gamify or to play the system just to reach a target here. We want to remove any of our human error, our human need to succeed, and set people up to actually succeed and set us up to actually be able to view the health of our company, because some of these are the rocks that are just absolutely pulling you down to the bottom of the river, and you can't drill holes in the bottom. Once you're at the bottom, you're there. You have to remove them to be able to come back up to the top and to be able to see that growth continue on.
And we see this really plague a lot of companies where we are measuring and targeting things that don't make sense for where we're trying to drive the business, right? we're told what we should target, and you should have this percentage of this, and here's the industry standard. Every market is so specific that you have to look internally at what your owners expect, what your residents expect. And then you're able to plant the seeds and create targets that are actually going to allow you to drive yourself forward rather than using arbitrary numbers because people are telling you it's the numbers we need to use.
Oh, absolutely. So making these specific for your company, making sure that you can drive forward are the most important things, and aligning it with your values and what it is that you are trying to do.
Absolutely. And what does this drive us to, Kristen?
Ooh, that drives us towards
Oh
growth.
no. Wait. I think there's a typo there, Kristen. It looks like,
There
oh,
absolutely is not, Candace. I know that is easy to believe if I did this, but no, that is not a typo. Okay. That is on purpose, because what we're talking about is not just growth, right? It's growth, right? Capital G growth is what we're wanting to drive towards. And what that means here is whenever your sales and your operations are so aligned that you're able to move forward together. This is the place where synergy happens, where everyone knows what we're doing, and our measures, our targets, our KPIs, whatever you want to call them, there are aligned with where we are trying to grow to, and everyone is moving in the same direction, right? Fun story. I went kayaking with my daughter at a zoo in Florida, and it was an epic fail. Why? Because I had a paddle, she had a paddle. Okay. She's 10, guys. She's super embarrassed by me. It's a wonderful experience. So we are trying to kayak with this big group of people. She has a paddle, I have a paddle, but we're never quite in sync. So what happens? We end up going in circles. We end up going off the path. We end up being asked by the leader if we should just go ahead and turn around and go back because we have no idea what the heck we are doing, right? That is not success, right? That is not growth. The growth is she needed to actually stop paddling, and I needed to be the only one paddling that kayak forward. And sometimes that's a hard conversation to have of like, hey, I know you want to participate, but you need to stop, right? And so these are some of the conversations with our team to help us drive that growth, changing what we're measuring, changing the direction we're going to be able to see that big G growth, because that is where your success happens, is whenever you're not just growing, but you're seeing that capital G growth. What would you add to that, Candace?
I think you hit the nail on the head. It is all just looking at the business from a comprehensive level and making decisions to drive the full business forward, not parts. We're not just doing things within our business because we have a team member that's overwhelmed and we need to take more off their plate. We're not doing things because we have this portfolio of owners that are really high touch and so we need to change our process to meet their needs. We are doing it so we can scale, double, triple, quadruple our doors and be able to sustain that growth long term.
Absolutely.
That growth.
Growth. You got to say it with your chest, guys, whenever you do it. It's growth.
Growth.
So we've talked about some of the metrics or some different ways that we can track these different messages that we can give to our team. What are the key takeaways? What are the action items that you guys need to take and you need to start implementing into your business? What do we have here,
Well,
Candace?
number one is we need to define the measures versus targets. And if you guys need support, you let us know. We can help you. If you say, this is what I'm measuring, we can give you some targets that will be really great alternatives and help drive you forward. But those two things should be defined and they should be two separate things. It's not one KPI sheet. That is how we're tracking the business. We have our measures, we have our targets, and then we are tracking them year over year to see where we're growing and where our pitfalls are.
Oh.
What's next, Kristen?
Next is focusing on our outcomes over activities. So what we want to make sure that we're doing is we're focusing on the outcome that we want from this metric. So whenever the easiest one here is churn, that is a number that we are all so aware of. We don't just care how many doors are churning. The outcome that we want is we want to be able to retain good owners. Whenever we are growing and we're adding more doors, we don't just want to add doors. The outcome that we want is to be able to add the right doors and retain the right doors. So we want to make sure that every single thing that we are measuring is tied to an outcome that is then clearly communicated to the team so they can all understand what it is that we're doing so that this next one, Candace, doesn't happen.
Because we need to watch for unintended consequences. This is an area where we see a lot of pain because we accidentally caused a bigger problem trying to solve another one. So we need to look at what we're doing. We need to look at what we're driving towards and realize we're not accidentally running over our foot trying to get to our destination.
Absolutely. And I think that also fitting into that one is whenever our employees will do anything to hit the number. we are going to give you 2 months of free management. We are going to do this. We're going to waive this fee. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. Those to me are those unintended consequences, because I just have to hit the goal. Like I just have to hit this thing. So I need to do whatever it is. Otherwise I'm going to get in trouble. I'm going to get fired. Oh, my boss is going to be mad at me. So I think that that's another thing there with those unintended consequences.
It really is. And I've seen it. I've done it. I have offered things I shouldn't have offered to save an owner I shouldn't have saved. And it's really easy to fall in that trap when you have specific, again, when you have these measures, but those are your targets. You're like, oh no, I can't go under this number or I'm going to be punished, when sometimes it's better to say goodbye than save someone to retain a number.
Absolutely. So wrapping that all together is aligning incentives to real goals. So that's such a great example that we just talked about there, that we should be rewarding our employees for letting go of bad owners and empowering them to be able to do that, and empowering them and giving them the tools that they need to be able to hit the goals. So then we align any incentives, right? You know the folks that you work with, you know what they like, you know what they desire. Bonuses, time off, lunch in the office. I don't know. What are we working towards? But sometimes these incentives don't have to be just monetary, right? How can we incentivize, give praise, shout out, do these things so that they are aligning with where we're trying to go?
I could not have said it better myself.
Well, thank you. So that wraps up, I think, the big bulk of our content here, Candace. So I think a very important question that we have is, what comes next here? What is the next step? So in about 2 weeks, we are going to have the second part of this webinar here, and we are going to talk about hard conversations, because now we've kind of laid out what we want to track. And once we review these, Candace, we might have to have some hard conversations with a couple of different people, and that's hard to do.
It is. And this is the conversations we're going to have with the owners, that we have promised them lower management fees, and now we have to talk to them about, oh, you actually have to pay us more and what we're worth. These are our residents, or not our residents, but our employees that are not willing to embrace the tech stack. And now we have to talk to them about, okay, it's time for you to start using these services that we are paying for to make the company run smoother.
Absolutely. And then it comes to our vendors. I would say a lot of times this is a conversation that makes me apprehensive. How do I tell somebody else who runs their own business that they need to show up on time or to do the things that they need? How do I find more vendors, right? How do we make sure that they are skilled, responsive, professional, licensed, bonded, insured, and actually get the work done the way that we want it to be done?
It's going to be a fun one.
So
I have to say, we're pretty good at the hard conversations, though. So
they are quite my favorite. I'll be the bulldog if I have to be the bulldog. So that is what is going to come next. And we want to help you guys to say goodbye to your growth depression. That is the goal of everything that we are doing here, is we want you to say goodbye to this. We want you to break free from this and be able to move on to what's next and best for you. So scan the QR code here. It's going to take you to our link tree. If you have any questions on the measures and what you should be targeting, if you have any questions on how we can help you, we would be more than happy to have a conversation with you and see if there's any way that we can get you to where you need to go faster.
And escape that era of stagnation.
Yeah, because I can imagine it probably sucks to be there, right? And then you can be this little plant just popping up out of the cracks here and start to grow whenever you think that you can't.
And for everyone who is still hanging out, we will be sending out a resource for you guys. So it'll have a rough look at some of our targets and the measures. You'll be getting that from us within the next day or so, just to help you drive forward as well.
Perfect. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free to drop them into the chat. We'd be more than happy to answer those for y'all this afternoon. If not, then that is the end of our webinar today. Thank y'all so much for hanging out with us. We really appreciate it.
I don't know why you said this afternoon. It is certainly only 10:42 for me. It's not my fault.
I don't live in the Pacific. Central and Eastern time. Thank y'all for this afternoon. Mountain and Pacific. Thank y'all for hanging out with us this morning. We really appreciate it.
Wonderful. All right. We will see you guys next time.
Thank you.